We're ready?
I've had Zoom meeting with him last week. There's been no secret. No, there hasn't. Really? Yeah. Putting their names out there for it. Yeah, he's actually good company. For him, it's forever.
Okay, we're recording. You want to get started?
Let's get started. All right, welcome. My mic on, huh? Thank you. Today is Wednesday, September 20th. It is 1:16 in the afternoon. We're at the WFRC office. This is a WFEDD meeting for this quarter. We're going to start this meeting this morning with introductions. We'll start with those in the conference room and then have Rosie go through those members of the committee that are online. Chris, we want to start with you.
Chris Roybal, Northern Utah Economic Alliance.
Uriel Xochimil, X Factor Strategic Communications.
Luis Garcia, WFRC.
Eric Gibson, Better City.
Jason Godfrey, Better City.
Marcia White, WFRC.
I'm Commissioner Gage Frohr.
Andrew Gruber with Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Ted Knowlton, WFRC.
Chris Sloan, Group 1 Real Estate, Tooele County.
Rosie Hernandez, Wasatch Front Regional Council, and joining us online, we have Ginger Chin, Blaine Fackrell, Mayor Debbie Nguyen, Christina Oliver, Terry Klug, Mark Nold, Holland Wilbanks, Nick Fritz, Edward Bennett, Michael Parker, Amanda Tullis, Wendy Thomas, Kyle Palmer, Randy Elliott, Susie Becker, Shannon Ellsworth, Sherry Stevens, Scott Cuthbertson, Ellen Matheson, Andrea Pearson. And that is all I see. If I missed your name or you jumped in during the roll call, please drop your name in the chat for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Okay, and I don't think we had anybody else come in.
One, if I may,
Go ahead, Andrew.
Mr. Chair, and Marcia can help me with this. We have at least one, and I think perhaps two new members to
Oh,
the
okay.
Economic Development District today. And if it's okay with you, I thought it'd be nice to just give them a moment to introduce themselves.
That'd be great. I wasn't aware of that, so let's do it.
And we could start with Kyle Palmer, who is with GoEO, and we're very happy to have him here. Kyle, would you want to take a moment?
Absolutely. First off, I just want to say in any group where I get to serve with Chris Sloan, my social IQ or increase. So thanks for that. I'm honored to be in Chris's presence as well as all of yours. So I will be joining all of our other meetings in person. Today was just kind of a complicated day for all that. So apologies for joining virtually, but I serve as the director of the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission, a group in which many of you serve and others you're familiar with. But the idea is to bring together the executive branch, legislative branch, local government entities, AOGs, really everyone to the table to try and solve the biggest issues facing the state. And moving forward in a very collaborative manner with that. So I have the privilege of working with Andrew Gruber and speaking with him about every week. And he's of course made some amazing contributions to our group. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. Excited to learn more about this group and of course hop in and serve. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Andrew.
Great.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And
Who else we have?
Marcia, do you have, are there other folks that you wanted to identify as new members to give them a moment?
We've got a couple of people joining us, and Sherry Stevens as well from GoEO. She's online. If you just quick introduction there.
Yes, I'm here. Hello. I'm Sherry Stevens with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity as well. And I am the outreach manager for Northern Utah. So everything north of Salt Lake.
And I see Tara Anderson on. Yeah, she's from GOPB, Governor's Office of Planning and Budget. And listening in as well. So thanks for being here, Tara.
Is that it? Anybody else? Okay, great. Thanks for those introductions. Both of those sound like great people to be on. I've worked with Kyle before. He'll be a great addition to this. This is his wheelhouse, and obviously with our Northern Utah representative, that's even a better spot to be. We know that's where things are happening in today's world. So with that, let's go to our action item, which would be a request for an approval of our last meeting, which was held on June 21st, 2023. I'd look for a motion to approve those minutes and/or corrections or changes.
So moved.
We have a motion. And we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much for that. Let's now go to the chair's report. Before I go into the report, I wanted to get some recognition to one of the staff members here. Luis Garcia has actually been an active member working as an intern for the community development team over the past number of months. I wanted to give Luis just a chance to give any input he may have as far as where this economic development is going in the state of Utah and what we do here at the WFRC. And more than anything, give him thanks for the work, the service he's provided to WFRC and the Economic Development District. Luis, thank you again. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, it was such a pleasure working this summer as the economic development intern with Marsha White and the rest of the team. As far as the economic development, the strategy working with Better City, it's been really great to give input and see those changes in the strategy document, and it's been really, really good. You know, applying what I've learned in school and then applying it here at the internship has been really, really great. And I'm excited for the economic strategies that we're going to introduce today, and hopefully everyone's agreeing with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marsha, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Luis. And one of the things that you'll see as we go through the SEDS is that one of our hopes is to get out and get some information out about funding opportunities. And Luis was able to put together a webinar that I thought was very well attended. There were, you know, I think maybe 120 emails that we sent out, and we had 40 participants, 3 of which have already reached back out to the EDA to try to get some funding from them. So thank you for doing that. That was a fun, different project for us. But I was just saying, as we were walking out of our offices, I'm going to miss him, seeing him on a every other day basis. So thanks.
And thank you for the work you've done, Luis. Great. Sarah, come on up here. And since you just arrived, Sarah, I'm going to have you introduce yourself. And since we just saw you yesterday, it's been quite a while, but some of us don't know who you are, maybe. Go ahead.
I'm Sarah Tolliver, President and CEO of Visit Ogden.
Welcome. And I don't know if we had the 2 gentlemen back here introduce. And you're welcome to take a seat up here if you'd like. We're not that stuffy up here, so. I don't think anybody down on that end's gonna bite you. Well, could be Chris, well, it's gonna be, yeah. Yeah.
So I'm Jake Maxwell. I am the Deputy Director for the Salt Lake City Department of Economic Development, filling in for Lorena Rifa Jensen.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Chanel. You better.
And I'm Che Mosqueda. I am part of WFRC as a long-range planner in the transportation planning.
Okay, and Davis County, I think, came in.
Yeah, Chanel Flores, Davis County Economic Development Director.
All right, I think, Marcia, that covers our attendance. Anybody come online, Rosie, since we started this meeting? All right, great. Okay,
I apologize. I couldn't get my mute off. I got here a little late. My name's Paul Hacking. I'm the president of Tooele Technical College. Glad to be here today.
Oh, Paul, thanks. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate that. So I just wanted to take a second as part of my remarks. I know we have somewhat of a full schedule, so I won't take very long, but wanted just to bring up, I think everybody has a copy of the Wasatch Choice Visions in front of them. I just you know, we talk about this a lot. This is Andrew's brainchild, I think, that has been working on this for a number of years. But I think he even talked of this back in my legislative days, which has been quite a history
A
ago.
lot of people have been
But-
working on this for a
yeah,
long time.
long
Thank
time,
you.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
But I think that we see in today's world, both in the public and private sector, how important and crucial this vision is. Starts off with the transportation. We understand without proper transportation and roads in our communities, economic development can't take place. Good development really can't take place because everybody's bogged up at stoplights or other areas. So we really starts in my mind with transportation. The second comes in the housing component. With good transportation and access to good development, you have housing choices, and those housing choices will result in what I'm going to call attainable housing in some areas, but it will result in housing because that's where developers and that's where land prices then will dictate where and I would say good development needs to take place. Obviously, with that, there's discussion in the vision about parks and spaces. We're going through I'm going to call it kind of a renovation in Weber County since we did a general plan update in Western Weber County that really beefed up our park districts. And every development we now look at has to make a contribution or be involved with our park districts because we understand how important that open space is. As land, open space, I'm going to call it, the farms disappear. We need to replace those with places for people, open spaces where people can congregate, have their family events, et cetera. So that all becomes part of that vision. And I think that's just what makes the vision work. And I'm hopeful that I think other communities, other counties in this state, and the people I talked to at UAC, the Utah Association of Counties, fully believes in this. So anyway, I just wanted to give a shot in the arm to Andrew and everybody at the WFRC for promoting this the vision. I think in 10 years, we will look back on this and seeing this as a game changer. So Andrew, anything you want to add?
Well, I would just, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, just turn to Ted Knowlton, our
Yeah.
Deputy Director, and I think he has some facts to share about this,
I
okay?
was going to turn it 10, but go, if you don't
Okay.
want to say anything, we'll turn it 10
Please,
right now.
thank you very much. You
Yeah.
you said it all, so
Yeah.
thanks, Mr. Chair. Go ahead, Ted.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mr. Chair. I will be really brief here. I know that we've been talking a lot about Wasatch Choice. It's noteworthy to talk about it now for two reasons. One is that it has just been refreshed at the conclusion of a 4-year planning cycle with a brand new Utah's Unified Transportation Plan, complete with new land use assumptions, a new land use vision. It is brand new, refreshed. There's also a new website, but then notably, the second reason is that it is a foundation for the comprehensive economic development strategy that we're about to hear from. I'll just take a few minutes to introduce this, that we know that Utah has been one of the fastest growing states for decades. And in the face of that growth, we've seen it really provides comfort to residents when they know that we are all working together. Communities are working with transportation agencies. We're thinking about economic development. We're thinking holistically, transportation, land use, economic development. We're thinking both locally, but also regionally. How do the changes that we are working on as we accommodate growth add up to maintaining quality of life for the region as a whole? And that we are thinking long-term. We are thinking about the decisions that we make in the near term and how those take us to the path that we want to be on down into the future, and that we create that future. That's really behind Wasatch Choice. That's part of what makes Wasatch Choice special. The other thing that makes Wasatch Choice special is the breadth of the partnership that is behind it. This is so many people and entities behind this. I think we start with local governments that are all part of this grassroots process of establishing a vision. WFRC, Mountain Land Association of Governments, the Utah Department of Transportation. That makes such good sense. Using the actual website that I'm talking about, the League of Cities and Towns, the Utah Association of Counties, Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, the Gardner Policy Institute, Envision Utah, Salt Lake Chamber, and other local chambers of commerce. It's such a terrific partnership that is behind this. So when we're talking about Wasatch Choice, a key aspect of Wasatch Choice are the strategies. Strategies for both a thriving region and communities. 4 key strategies that I'll mention: transportation choices. We have real choices for how we choose to get around. Housing options. People can choose. Let's keep our prices low. Parks and public spaces, ensuring that they are ample and convenient to get to. And city and town centers. You'll hear more about city and town centers today, including within the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. One of the things that we've done in this website is we've highlighted how the vision relates to economic opportunity. And I just clicked on a tab that pulls open this. Those here in the room have this, and after I'm done, I will share the link to this document. Transportation choices, it helps us have more efficient businesses. We can get products to their destination on time. Firms have a bigger selection of workers. Housing options lowers our expenses. That's good for business. Parks and public spaces and amenities in general help us attract and retain a quality workforce. City and town centers hit so many of those things. They help us be more productive. They lower our prices, including our housing prices. They are amenities in and of themselves. City and town centers being these places where we focus activity in a walkable and mixed use environment that really adds to the quality of life of both local cities as well as the region as a whole. Hopefully you saw that when I clicked on it. And then scrolling down, I won't show the video, but there's a brand new video we'd love you to take a look at. Now let's go to the map for just a minute. Brand new Wasatch Choice map on the brand new wasatchchoice.org website. This really shows the crux of what Wasatch Choice is. Let's coordinate land use, transportation, economic development regionally, long-term. I can turn these off. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but those city and town centers that vary in hierarchy to fit the wants and needs of particular communities. Other land uses, employment districts, industrial areas, special districts, universities, these are key places for the economy as well. Parks and public spaces, amenities that help us attract our skilled labor. And transportation, we're talking about roads, public transportation, and trails, active transportation. If you zoom in without a mouse, I'm not even going to try. I just know that it'll fail. But we pull these things together and coordinate them, and that is really part of the magic of helping us maintain our quality of life, is to think through the location of all of these pieces together. And this adds up. This adds up to significant benefits. We forecast that if we all do our part to implement the Wasatch Choice, it means, let's talk about access to opportunities, that a business or a household can reach 30% more places within a typical commute. Think of a business, 30% bigger workforce that they can choose from on average. More growth in those city and town centers means a savings of 35 square miles of land development that we don't have to develop. That translates into $5 billion worth of savings in local infrastructure that we don't have to build and maintain. And water, we don't have to irrigate as much land, so we save 3 billion gallons a year in water. There are many other benefits, including air quality and housing prices, transportation expenses that all relate to economic development. So I certainly hope that you will take a chance and explore this website and the newly refreshed Wasatch Choice. Hopefully this also serves as a good foundation for the conversation that we have about the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy.
Great. Thank you for that, Ted. Great presentation. Andrew?
Now, if I can, I'll take
ahead.
one moment to add
ahead.
something briefly, and that is the overall purpose of this vision, of this Wasatch Choice vision, is to preserve and enhance quality of life in our region, even as we grow, for generations to come. That's the overall purpose. But for you all on this committee, whether you're private sector or public sector, you are all leaders in the community, right? You have the responsibility to chart the course for the future of our region. And so for you, I would suggest that there's sort of two more specific purposes of the vision. One of them, I think, is to give confidence to a public that is rightfully concerned about the impacts of growth, that we do in fact have a plan, that we are working together to chart a positive course for the future in a way that brings together all of these disparate impacts. It's not like developers are just off doing a development over here and the transportation planners are doing something separate and the economic development entities are doing something separate yet from that. We are coordinating our activity together to promote quality of life. And then I think the second thing is, candidly, it's to encourage action. It's to help us figure out what are the tasks and steps that we need to take together, because we cannot take comfort in our quality of life being maintained as we grow. We have amazing quality of life, but we can't take that for granted in our region and in our state. We have to work together and take action. And I hope then that as you're working in your individual spheres, that the SEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, does in fact help chart a course for what are the actions we can take in an economic opportunity space that fits in with the broader Wasatch Choice vision that can help us overall maintain and even enhance our quality of life. So hopefully this work that we're doing together and you all are doing in your individual spaces will help us implement that Wasatch Choice vision and continue to have great quality of life.
Great. Well said. And I think you hit it on the head, Andrew, when you talk about growth. I don't think Weber County is the only county in the state that continues to get accused of encouraging growth or promoting growth. I think Sarah Tolliver understands very well. She's in the same community as I, that we get blamed for all the people moving in from out of state. And really what this does, it gives us the opportunity to say, and a lot of people will listen to it if put in the right way. A lot of people won't. They're just opposed to growth at any level. But it gives us the opportunity to say, look, there's a plan in place. We're not going to have uncontrolled growth, uncontrolled development. Here's our plan, and detailed transportation through housing becomes part of that vision. So I think that becomes important. So before we go into public comment, I wanted to recognize my very great Vice Chair, Mayor Nguyen. Did you have anything you'd like to say before we get started?
Well, thank you. Yeah,
giving
thank
you
you
the
very
opportunity.
much. Just want to say thank you to everybody. I wish that I could be there today. I've just got a ton of meetings and can't take the 45-minute drive in there. So thank you very much. And I'm excited to hear the results of the SEDS. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Well, you're represented by Mr. Chris Sloan from your area, so I think you'll be well represented. All right, with that, let's go to public comments. Anyone online that would like to make a comment, or in the committee room that would like to make a comment, public comment, we'd ask you limit that time frame to 2 minutes. Now's your opportunity. Anyone raising their hand? Rosie, I can't see that far.
I don't see anyone online, Chair.
Okay, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move forward, which is the main part of our agenda, which we're going to talk about the 5-year Regional Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, better known as SIDS, that we've talked about over the past 9 months. And we've been working on that plan again with public input, public engagement, a lot of stakeholders. We have people in the room. Jason Godfrey's going to step us through kind of the process they went through and the results. But I'm going to turn the time over to Marsha White to start the conversation, just to give the background. And then I believe Jason will kind of give the updates as far as what he was able to come up with our strategy. Marsha, go ahead.
We'll get to the front here. So I just want to shout out, Better City was a very great partner in this process. So thank you for being here today and supporting me. And I hope that what you see as we go through this, that you'll notice some common themes that are coming out of all of these things. Maybe, maybe not. Thanks. So first of all, I just want to start off by saying that this is every economic development district is required by the EDA to create a 5-year SEDS process. And you can see that it's, you know, a regionally owned planning process. I mean, they have this whole why of why you do it. I know that's a lot of small words, but a regionally owned planning process, building capacity and guiding economic prosperity and resiliency. They have, you know, they want you to engage with your conversations with counties and cities and stakeholders. They want to try to figure out how to serve economic development in your region, integrate or leverage. This is the one that I want to really talk about, integrate or leverage other regional planning documents, and then ultimately advancing the regional goals and objectives. And so they create this very stringent framework that we have to fall in. And so you have to have a summary background, and you have to do a strength and weakness and opportunities and threat analysis. And some things that sometimes in this day and age don't make sense, but we have to follow their framework. And so we followed their framework. And then this year they decided to include 4 things within that you need to include in the SEDS, and that is climate resiliency, workforce development, equity, and access to broadband. So very, I mean, very good things to do, but we had to make sure that we included them. So you'll see that as we also go through the SEDS. Oh, yeah, thank you. What we wanted to do though, and it's like consistency, right? So we want to make sure that we're building upon the previous SED. So we don't want to just throw the baby out with the bathwater, because, you know, a lot of work has been done. So the previous strategies for the last one, last SEDS, was linking development and transportation with other infrastructure, creating fiscally sustainable places, providing amenities, and then attracting and retaining businesses and encouraging innovation. There were 21 recommendations / objectives and 35 actions. If you remember reading that, they were, the actions were pretty high level, pretty nebulous in how they wanted us to move forward through that. Other factors that came up as we were going through this process is that the state decided to do a coordinated action plan for Economic Vision 2030, and really encouraging each of the associations of governments to take their plan and help and actually set it into our regional SEDS. But what was nice about it is that we saw some common themes again that started to come through this: business engagement, placemaking, property development, in-house research and data, and then professional development and staffing. So they came up with the 6 I's as competitive positions for the state to move forward in an economic competitive advantage. And then we went to the counties and we said, okay, counties, tell us what's happening in your counties. These are just a few of the things that were happening at the county level, but I brought it down to business and expansion, funding, housing, infrastructure, other assets, and then workforce. So you can see Weaver County, for instance, wants to develop place-based economic development, meaning place-based. You know, how can we create a place for economic development, and what does that mean? And so we looked at the counties. I didn't get into the cities because most of the cities also have their own individual plans. And so I would assume that if we asked all the cities, we'd start to see another common theme in that.
Marcia, can I just briefly supplement? You're noting our coordination with the state and our coordination with the counties. I think that's a theme of our work here at WFRC and on the SEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which is we are not trying to supplant any of the work that is being done by other entities. What we're trying to do is coordinate with other state, regional, county level organizations and entities so that we can be supportive of your work that you're doing within that regional context. And then also the particular tie that we have to the EDA and the EDA funding and programs, make sure that's woven into the work that we're doing here. And then also to tie that economic development activity back with the broader work that WFRC does in the Wasatch Choice Vision. So it's that sort of linkage of those pieces together, bringing them together is, I think, the role that we play, the place that we operate.
I can sit down. So just to recap, so many of you were interviewed by either on a focus group or one-on-one individual interviews. We did some state leadership interviews. We did a survey that went out to the board, the committee. We had interviews with and discussions with staff internally, and then I should put more committee discussions like with some of the other committees. Again, the theme that's coming out of this, transportation, workforce development, recruitment, growth, housing, and as Andrew said, what is our role as the WFEDD, as our committee and staff? And so we're trying to figure out how to put all of that together. And so what it started, yeah, you want to hit that next one. So also trying to figure out how to focus on the Wasatch Choice Vision. And so how to bring all of that we've learned, what we've done in the past, the consistency, how do we bring all of that into and make these puzzle pieces all fit together under and help actually move the Wasatch Choice Vision along. And that's with that mindset, we started in on analyzing the data, looking at the data, and coming up with key points so that we can create a new SEDS. So we came up with.
Marsha, as you're going through this, please just make sure you're in the mic enough that folks online can hear.
Sorry, thank you. So what we did is that we created a plan, and this plan then had what I'm calling 4 key anchors. So you can see that we focused on city centers, we focused on economic development capacity, we focused on human capital development, and diverse business, a diverse business environment. These are very small words on this piece of paper, and so hopefully those that are in here have this little condensed report, and I think, Rosie, you've put it into the chat. But looking at one of the things that we found out is that what is the role of the Wasatch Front Economic Development District? And so you can see through all of this, what we tried to do is say, what is our role? What do we do? What can we do to move these pieces along? And so we can communicate the benefits of cities and towns. We can build upon the tenets of the Wasatch Choice Vision. You can see that, I mean, I'm not going to read all of that. We also said, what are the outcome objectives? So what do we want from our recommendations? What are those outcome objectives? So in this case, we want to increase the number of city and town centers across the region, and that we want to complete plans and guides that support communities' efforts to develop centers. We created the, remember, I had to go back to the EDA. They make us do the resiliency piece. So we had to have some sort of statement about resiliency in there. And then one of the things that I talked a lot about to Better City, and they as well back to me, is what are the metrics? What are the metrics that are actually going to move us along? So the first one, develop new city and town centers. And our objective is to create 3 new centers by 2028. Do I know if we're going to get there or not? I don't have any idea, but I at least have a baseline right now. And if we can work to do some of the things within our recommendations, we're hoping that that will help cities and towns move along in it. I can see Ted.
And I'm just noting that most of the city and town centers in the vision exist today. And communities that have said, look, as we grow, it makes a lot of sense for us to strengthen them. There are some new centers as well.
See, already done. Fantastic. But my thought is if we can set a baseline and work towards moving those metrics, then we know that we've actually taken those recommendations and moved them forward. If you hit the next one, we have it all outlined too. This one happens to be, I just highlighted the top one, host best practice workshops, host 5 workshops by 2028, and who are the participating organizations. And so I hope those participating organizations grow as we get closer to making those recommendations or fulfilling those recommendations. But things that we can actually do, actually move. I can actually say, okay, we're going to host a workshop this year, and this is what we're going to do. So having us actually have metrics that we can check the box by the time we're done, we can say, did we do it or not? If you go to the next one, this one was a little, this one was more about funding. The EDA, I use this example. The EDA gave or granted Wyoming $18 million last year. They granted Utah $20 million last year. And I can guarantee you there's a lot more people in Utah than there are in Wyoming. So we need to really get out and try to work with our partners to get that word out. I know that the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity wants to help with getting the word out. I know that the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget also wants to do that. They've created a new website that you can go on and look at funding opportunities. So I'm trying to get the word out, trying to figure out how we can move that needle as far as funding. And Sarah, you're saying, yes, the EDA would be nice to give you some money, right? So that's an objective. I just highlighted one here, host an annual grant symposium to provide training and share best practices. 1 in a year, and others that could join in and help us. And maybe that's a joint one with the state and all the AOGs. We haven't come up with all the answers yet, but the next. So one of the things that we talked about last time, and Chris, you brought this up, is to try to figure out where we can get some better data and some data that can get into the hands of the counties and the cities, that they can make more real-time decisions than the census data that's already out of date. And so really trying to work with counties and cities to come up with that. The other one, this one's a role that's really hard because we don't operate in the space of human capital, although we need human capital. But there are things that we can do, and that means convening. The one that I really liked on this one is the support legislation that will offset the administrative burdens of costs caused by implementing innovative business-focused solutions. I know that's a lot of words, but what we're talking about is trying to put childcare services within centers, within places that people are 10, 15 minutes away from their workplace, transportation services, or working with transit passes so that we have equity among people that can get to and from work, that access to transport or access to opportunity. So really trying to be a support in that. And let's see, if you go to the next one, one of the things that I really like is leading by example. And we were awarded that we have at least 50% of our workforce are women in our organization. And so really trying to build upon bringing more of a just like leading by example. And so doing that, diverse thinking, those kind of things, diverse hiring. That doesn't mean that everyone has to do a diverse hiring, but I think just by leading example and trying to figure out how we can do it will also help others do it too. And the last one is the diverse business development. It's really trying to figure out, and again, what's our role and how we work, but it's working with the counties and the cities to help them with business recruitment and retention, and really trying to figure out how to, we know that AI is coming, artificial intelligence is coming. We know that. So how are we ahead of the curve? How can we do some of the best practices in that? And if you want to go ahead. So just trying to figure out how to get more money into the business side of things. And so I just, we're working with right now, UAMI, the universities, trying to figure out how to just have no barriers, STEM, those kind of things into organizations. One of the things that came out of the state economic vision was they had they had quite a few. They had a lot of metrics, or they had a lot of performance metrics to measure. And so we also had performance measures to measure. And so this is not a complete graphic, so I apologize for the kind of the rudimentary graphic here, but you can see where the blue is ours, what we would like to show. Vehicle miles traveled per capita, housing and transportation costs per income, parks and open space. But then you kind of start to get down, like attainable housing, for instance, is something that's both on our radar and also on the state's radar. Leisure and hospitality, they have some metrics for that. And so you can kind of see that we actually, what we are going to measure and what they have been measuring or want us to measure, they're, quite a few of them are in both buckets. So right now, Eric is working on a metrics dashboard, and it will include those measures, including some access to opportunity measures as well. And Rosie, I don't know if you can just pull up that. So I'm just going to show you briefly, and it's very interactive, but this is very static at this point. But this is a dashboard that you'll see. You'll be able to hit on city and town centers. In fact, if you go ahead and hit on that one, Rosie, that city and town center, yeah. It takes you to another spot where it will show different things. And this one is actually the mean travel time to work. If you hit at the bottom, let's say Davis County here, it starts to show you the mean travel time of Davis County and where people are going and how much time we're spending in our cars and things. So it is currently being worked on, but we'll have a dashboard that is required by the EDA at this point to put on there.
So Marcia, we're saying we're feeding data into this. And so, for example, the reason that the line looks straight is because we haven't yet inputted all of the data, and that is evolving as we go.
That's correct. So the intent of this dashboard, all of the key metrics that we identify in the SEDS document are here, and they're live right now. They're available. So we have a data point for each of those, and our philosophy is that you can own that data. So we're going to give you the file that is the backbone, the database for this, and then I have very clear instructions exactly how to update that every year. So Wasatch Front will then just add data each year as it becomes available, and we'll update these charts and track your progress on each of those goals. So Rosie, if you go to that first page again real quick, then those are the very high level metrics. So each of those charts just show, where you're at, what the goal is, and you can track that over time. That's all owned by Wasatch Front. So I'll hand that off to you at the end of this process. And this dashboard is yours and you have full control of the data and you update it each of those years as you do your annual updates to the board as well as to EDA.
Go back to the overview, the PowerPoint. Thank you. So we have some next steps. The way that the EDA works is that they require a 30-day public comment period. I felt that it was necessary that you all got a chance to look at the SEDS before the approval of it. So we would like you to do an approval for a 30-day public comment period. The comment period will start tomorrow and will end on October 20th. After that, the committee then, this is what I would like to do on October 23rd, which is a Monday in the afternoon. We'll send out a quick Zoom link and have you all join us for a 15-minute, maybe 30-minute discussion, depending on if there's a lot of comments in the comment period, and then do an official approval of the SEDS. And then what I would like to do is then have it presented to the Wasatch Front Regional Council's council meeting and have them concur that they approve the SEDS as well. And then we will send it off to the EDA by the end of next month. And then lastly, what I would like for you to do is be able to say, okay, this sounds great. Now get to work. Let's go and make some stuff happen. So. That's
So
it.
just one clarification. So the idea, we put it out for public comment for 30 days. And during that period of time, members of the EDD also can review
you.
and
Yes.
provide additional feedback. You've had the opportunity to be engaged as we go along, but I'm presuming, I'm putting words in your mouth.
Yes, thank you.
But that we would welcome further input from the members of the EDD on the content, and we have the ability to still make modifications between now and the end of that period, right?
For sure. Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So I guess, before we go on to a motion, I just want to say in conclusion, what we have is we had to take what the EDA's framework was. We wanted to make sure that we used, some continuity from the last SEDS. We wanted to make sure that we added the state stuff in there. We wanted to make sure that we had the county. And then we also counties. And then we also wanted to make sure that it matched and was able to move the Wasatch Choice vision along. And so with that, that's where I'm at. So go ahead.
That concludes your presentation, Marcia?
Yes, sir.
All right, before we place the motion, I wanted to give the opportunity for Better City. Jason, did you have information since you've been kind of directing this traffic?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words. As Marcia indicated, the SEDS process is mandated by EDA, and the reason you care is because they have money. And so to play in their pond, you get to do the SEDS. I've read a lot of them, and a typical SEDS is pretty formulaic, pretty paint by the numbers. We're filling the requirements so that we can get EDA money. We met with Marcia, and early on, she said, nope, we're going to use this process to do something that's meaningful and that's going to be impactful, that can be an actual roadmap to impact. And I want to just say that I don't know how many years I'm going to have to work before I see another process that's as good as this one was, and an outcome that's as good as this one was. Marcia highlighted the complexity of having to integrate all these different plans and having different masters that you have to satisfy, and just making sure you're checking all the boxes, but still have a cohesive narrative that has something meaningful at the end that actually is substantive. So I want to highlight three things. One is the involvement of Ted and Megan and Andrew and Marcia. I mean, they've been extremely integral. There's the reason that Marcia presented. This is her plan. This is a Wasatch Front Regional Council plan. It's pretty typical to throw out the consultants. They do it, they present it, and then it goes and sits on a shelf. This is not that. This is 100% a Wasatch Front Regional Council plan that we helped and we were like the boots on the ground. This plan addresses some of the most pressing issues, but stays in its lane. That's so hard. There's so few EDDs in this country that really understand what their role is and how they can contribute. And Wasatch Front is, in my opinion, the model for across the country for an organization that understands that regional role and has impact and is able to drive change. And the intentionality around this as you go through the document, that there was a lot of thought put into, okay, here's the problem, but what's the role of Wasatch Front specifically? Cities have this, counties have that, state has that, where can we make impact? And finally, most strategic plans, when you get to the recommendations, are really high level: consider, consult, study, evaluate, not committing anything. And then the metrics are think about. This is not that. They are very specific recommendations, and essentially Marcia's saying, hey, put it on me. I want real recommendations and I want real metrics. That takes, that's a commitment right there, and that's incredibly impressive. So we're very grateful to have been part of this process, very impressed by this, this organization, this community, Marcia and the team, what they've signed up for, and this result that can really have impact. Eric, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I would just like to emphasize that Better Cities philosophy is that we always start with a blank document. And so all of the words that are in this plan are 100% driven by the input we received from stakeholders, the data that we looked at and analyzed, and all the recommendations that we have in here are intended to really drive impact. And that's our goal here. And so please review it with a critical eye, and please let us know if you want to make changes to any of these goals, recommendations, anything like that. And especially for those who are thinking about applying for EDA funding, you have to make sure that your project is within the SEDS. So I would also say be very careful there, because this SEDS is very unique in that we didn't paint by numbers. We wanted to make it very much driven by the strategies and issues that were brought up by the stakeholders. There is a chance that your project might not have been captured there. So please review, especially the other projects and other projects and priorities section of the document, and make sure that your intended project fits within some of those ideas that are represented there, or through the broader strategies in the document, to make sure that you can qualify for funding.
Can we get let's get a little clarification, excuse me, on this point, because it's an important one. In order to qualify for a project, to qualify to get funding from the various EDA programs, the project itself has to be included in the sets.
Correct.
And what the topic? Okay, please clarify this, because I want to make sure, because what we've looked at so far, and Rosie went back to overview, but what we've looked at so far have been overall strategies, metrics, dashboards, terrific. But is there also a project list or some sort of topic list? Because you're saying, make sure you look at that and that your projects are included. Can we put on the screen what we're talking about?
So
that
you
people
don't need
see
to,
that?
we don't need to have, community X is going to be doing this particular project. You have to fit it within the strategies. So, if you're doing a workforce development project, then workforce development needs to be one of the topics within the strategy. So there's plenty of room to say if it fits or not.
So it's not like, if you're working on a specific development in a specific area, that project doesn't have to be listed, but the
No, it does
nature
not.
of it has to be captured within the strategies.
Correct.
So, and I can give you a very specific example.
Marcia, you got the
Yeah.
point there?
So one of our recommendations is support the region's counties, and one of the tasks is promote tourism opportunities and maximize local municipalities' revenue through increased visitor activity. And so therefore, Sarah would be able to apply for an economic development grant, because that's what we have included tourism in our sets.
Okay.
And that's what's the hard part about trying to stay in our lane and yet making sure that we have all
Yeah.
pieces covered.
So what slide in the presentation would is there what slide in here would be the one that would show those? Is this? No, that's the last one. Keep going
Yeah,
forward.
the one that had the counties listed, I would say is probably the one that's closest to that section.
Next one. Other direction. Yeah. This one? This one? You said the one that lists the four pillars?
Keep going down.
I think there's a better one.
Keep going.
One more. So each of these.
Oh, okay. So, right. So you have four, there's again, the four, sorry, I'm sorry to belabor this.
No, you're good.
I just want there to be clarity for everybody and how this fits in with the work that you're doing. So Marcia, you said before that there are four, I think you called them pillars.
I called them anchors. 'cause they
Anchors,
look like
excuse me.
anchors.
City and town centers is one of them.
Correct.
So Rosie, just click through. City and town centers is one of them. Economic development capacity is another one of them. Keep going. Human capital development and diverse business development. Those are the four anchors. And so use your speaking mic.
Under those categories, though, where Marcia identified that tourism one, do they have to be identified by a specific task category? Or if it just falls under that main anchor category, that's sufficient?
Usually it usually has to come under some recommendation first.
Dig further into that list and make sure it's represented from a high level within those task categories under the recommendation.
Correct.
That's great. That's a perfect example and puts the finer point on, here's the nature of the review that we're asking for, to go through, think about what you're working on, what's important in your respective areas of economic opportunity, and then please review these strategies, recommendations, and tasks and make sure that there's something, that nothing is missing. That's perhaps the most important review points. Okay, is that, yes, good?
I'd agree.
Okay.
Andrew, maybe just to further clarify, Marcia, this is the 20 million that you're referring to of EDA money that's been allocated to the state of Utah, correct?
It's
These grant applications are
correct.
coming from that $20 million pool. Is that
that-
right?
Well, it's coming from the EDA, so it
No, I
could be
understand.
$57 million. Who knows what, but yes, the
Do
answer
we
is
have a max of
The
20
Chris,
million?
no, the 20, Marcia, right, the 20 million is awards that have already been made from the EDA to specific projects over the last year to some period of time. Going forward, there are additional awards that are available. So those EDA awards are for specific projects already been spoken for.
Okay.
Looking ahead over the five years of this SEDS, there's hundreds of millions of dollars potentially available. If you want to apply for and compete for those funds, the application, whatever project you're applying for, has to fit into the SEDS, into a category. So we're thinking prospectively. The 20 million is a retrospective reference to things that have already been awarded, but the resources are bigger as we look ahead.
And does that application have to be sent directly from the organization to the EDA? Does it have to be sent in concert with WFRC? How's that done? I mean, I can think of 10 different projects we would submit for a grant application, but it gets complicated, and I think people tend to lose interest because it's too complicated to figure out where to put the application in and who do they have to partner with and
hence
all of
one of
that,
our, hence one of our strategies is, or tasks is to host grant funding workshops.
Okay.
But to answer your question, no, you can, as an organization, as long as you are a county, city, nonprofit, tribal nation, university, you could submit.
Okay.
And then typically what we do is look to see if it falls within our SEDS, and then we write a support letter to economic development.
Yeah, and we can help. Marcia and others on the team here, and actually all the folks in the counties and the economic development organizations can help for entities that are looking to make applications. So there's support, technical assistance, collaboration, but we, WFRC, are not the applying entity. You're the applying entities, but we can support you in doing that. Okay? Okay. I got one more thing. Okay.
Go ahead.
Rosie, will you go back to the first of the pillars? Anchors. God. Pillars, anchors, whatever. What?
Main the
There.
same, yeah, city and town.
City and town centers. Okay, so there are four. City and town centers is one of them. And I want to ask you guys, maybe Jason, maybe you can comment on this. I want to put just hit the nail on the head on this thing. Centers, city and town centers is one of the key strategies of the Wasatch Choice Vision for absorbing growth in a way that will help us preserve quality of life in the future. And what we are seeing here is the CEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, also says that city and town centers are one of the key anchors for having a thriving economy, right? Can you just elaborate on that? You know, it's not a coincidence. I was going to say remarkable coincidence. It's not a coincidence about how effective this approach is to absorbing growth for our quality of life and for our economy, please.
Yeah, so we're a little bit dense, but we did actually figure out pretty early on in the process that centers and towns, or city and town centers are pretty important to this organization. So if we wanted to get paid, we might want to mention those. And but it wasn't. So we went and we said we're going to do the research. We're not just going to. It's not pro forma. It's not performative. We want to do the research. And Eric's done some great raw research. Towns and city centers are transformative in what they can do for economic development. You talk about transportation, significant material changes in the amount of transportation that has to be built if you have towns and centers and their economic drivers. You know, if people work in these town centers, that's significant. You know, think of the ripple effects of that. Oh, there's less infrastructure needs. You know, how that impacts the budgets of cities and towns and states and counties, et cetera. Other things are workforce. The workforce is a big problem. Utah's already redlined at 70% workforce participation. It's among the best in the nation. So how do you fix this jobs problem? What if you make it easier for people to work? What if you can bring people into the workforce that aren't currently for whatever reason? Centers can be catalytic, can be significantly improve that because of commutes, you know, and daycare centers and so forth, where you can bring other people into the workforce who might not be able to if they have an hour and a half commute every day. There's more. Yeah, the centers are, this is not performative. It's not just because we want to get paid. That it's a real significant driver to both quality of life, but also economic development. And there's some very specific recommendations or strategies that detail how centers will be a key component of driving economic development. Eric, anything you want to add to that?
I would just say if I were to put a thesis point to this document, it'd be that economic centers, activity centers that we discuss here, the city and town centers, are one of the best ways forward for the state of Utah, really, to develop its economy and ensure that there's social mobility, that there's good quality of life, that there's access to amenities and opportunities for households and for individuals throughout all of the states. So that is really the key driver, in my opinion, of our entire strategy, is that these centers are critical to achieving all of the other main anchor points that we discussed throughout the document.
Thanks. And I really appreciate you saying that. And you're sort of joking about centers are really important to us, and they are, but sort of the point was we asked Better City to evaluate the center development strategy through an economic lens. And they came back having done this research that pointed in the direction that you're saying, that the centering of development is in of itself a key strategy for having sustainable economic opportunity. That's what emerged out of this.
Empirically, with empirical data, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I,
May-
sorry, Ted, go ahead.
Oh, I apologize. You know, we get a question fairly commonly about city and town centers that I just wanted to highlight an answer to, which is, I think some people hear that and they think, oh, well, they're talking about downtown Salt Lake City and downtown Ogden, downtown Provo. Yeah, I guess that makes sense for those to be vibrant. It's intended to, the idea here is that the value comes in lots of different communities, thinking about, well, what's the heart of our community? It can be a rural community, and that an individual community can experience those housing benefits, those infrastructure cost benefits, transportation choice benefits, economic access benefits. It's not an urban approach. It is a approach for any community that is experiencing any kind of growth.
All right, good point. Marcia, anything else?
Yeah, you'll see through if you review the entire document, you'll see what Eric was saying, that there's findings, there's analysis, there's research that backs it up. It's tabbed and footed in the whole document. And again, I want to just thank you both for coming along for the ride. I just recently sent a bunch of changes to Eric, and I said to Jason, I think he's going to pull out all of his hair, and Jason said hair is highly overrated. So I appreciated that humor at that point. So thank you.
Andrew, any last words before we move on?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. I just want to say, kind of follow up with discussions on the town centers. This is not a urban issue by any means I could see. In fact, again, from Weber County, we see this happening as we speak, which we have an area up there called Newtown Eden that we're encouraging people, and Sarah knows this very well, with the idea that we take density off our valley floor that doesn't have any services, i.e. water, sewer, and try to stop pollution in the Pine View Reservoir, which is a pretty important water source for Ogden City. Encourage those to go into a central, what we call the new town, increased density. Again, transportation, we're looking at sewer dollars going into there, so infrastructure takes place. We're looking at then changes on the transportation in terms of roundabouts, et cetera. So by far, this, I think, impacts some of the rural communities, at least it does in my county, as much or more as you'd see in some of the urban areas. So I think we need to pay very close attention to that. And Marcia's going to talk about funding opportunities here shortly. Before we move on, anybody online that or in the committee room that has questions or comments? I think Andrew, Marcia, Jason, Eric, thank you for trying to clarify this whole process. I think that brought it to a fairly good conclusion, but I wanted to make sure anybody in the room or online that had an opportunity or a question, now's your time to do that before we look for a motion. All right, seeing anything online? Nope, doesn't look like it. All right, with that, great, good discussion. Again, thanks to those that have spent the last number of months putting this together. I would look for a motion to, as you see on the board, to approve the Wasatch Regional Council Wasatch Front Economic Development District 2023-2028 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Plan for the 30-day public comment starting September 20th, which is today, and ending October 20th. Keep in mind, this is not the final approval. This is just the plan that we approve it to put on public comment. I would encourage those members, as I think Andrew stated, anybody on this committee probably most logically will have the opportunity to spend some time and go through that. I'd encourage you to look at those recommendations. As Sarah's pointed out, we want to make sure that our tourism is included under that SIDS program. We want to, anybody in their communities may have something that they see that may be left out. Now's your opportunity to make sure you're included. So,
and Mr. Chair, Commissioner Fackrell asked the question whether we could give a link, share a link with people so that they can put it on their, any of you want to put it on your website to share this with anybody else for public comment. And the answer to that is yes. I'm sure this is already in the plan, but Rosie will send out a follow-up email with a link that you can use to share with others and including putting on your website for review.
And we will also send out a date on October 23rd to make sure that that's on your calendars as well. And yes, it will go out, just so you know, it'll go on our website. It'll go out in a social media post and even on our newsletter. So we're trying to spread a little bit wide.
Good.
And Marcia, the October 23rd, again, is The idea is a virtual only meeting of this committee, a brief meeting to regroup, highlight on any modifications, and then have an actual approval for the plan. Okay?
That's a plan. But I'm
Okay.
assuming any recommendations prior to that would come directly to Marcia. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
you can email me or there will be a form as well, but
So,
I'll
will-
try to make those changes as we go along so that
Okay,
you know.
and will there be a place on the website to make those recommendations, or how do they do that?
Yeah, there will be a form that you just fill out
Okay.
to make any changes.
All right, good. All right, with that. And we have a motion to approve. We have a second. And we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All right, any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. Marcia, Jason, the plan's approved.
Who's that guy who made that motion?
Yeah. You
They
ready?
said, hey, Sean. I said, who's that guy who made that motion? You didn't introduce yourself when you came in. Might as well introduce
Oh.
yourself. Everybody knows who you are, but introduce yourself anyway.
Thank you, Andrew. Sean Milne, from the Great White North of Box Elder County.
Thank you.
Hey, I know that we're already adjourned, but.
Wait, I
uh,
have one
no,
more thing.
we're
have
not
one more
adjourned
thing.
yet.
Oh, forgive me. Well, I'll finish my sentence. Better Cities did a tremendous job on this.
Yeah.
And this is not our first SEDS. And I just have to say, it was a really impressive job that this team did. And I wanted to note that.
Yeah, this was a heavy lift, no question about it. Jason and his group, Better Cities, have done a fantastic job. So Eric, thank you very much again. All right, so the motion did pass. We appreciate that. Let's now go to our next agenda item, which deals with funding. We talked about now this SIDS recommendations will go out. Part of these recommendations, and if they're going to be implemented, require funding. And Marcia will go over the funding opportunities that you may have as a city, county, et cetera. So Marcia, go ahead.
Let's just try to, see if I can pull this one up. There we go. So I'm going to go over this really briefly. We're right in the middle of some funding and technical assistance programs, and I thought that it'd be really interesting for you to know, to note what we do. First of all, that is a picture of downtown Ogden, and if you go down there today, you would not find a parking place. So just as an FYI, but please come visit us.
Sarah's got better pictures than that.
You can take the BRT and it goes right downtown. But I just want to talk a little bit about some programs that are happening right now, and we're in the middle of the letter of intent time. So there's a surface to transportation program, and I wish that I could talk a lot more about what all of these are. A congestion mitigation and air quality grant. Actually, the BRT got a CMAQ grant, and it is offering now, we can take the BRT for the next 3 years free. And so it's a great opportunity for cities to take a whole, or take an opportunity to use these. Whew. Carbon reduction program and the TAP program, the Transportation Alternatives Program. I know that Stephanie Russell, Economic Development in Weber County, has applied or put in a letter of intent for a TAP funding.
And just so everybody knows, the BRT that's being asked is the Bus Rapid Transit. That's
Thank you.
in Ogden City, UGA's Bus Rapid Transit. And just one clarification, what Marcia is doing right now, she's going over the list of funding programs that are administered by WFRC that are available for cities and counties to apply for. And the private sector organizations can collaborate with cities and counties to apply to us for grants for funding and for technical assistance. So that's the
Thank
list
you.
you're going over.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, keep going. Good point.
Somebody else was supposed to, do this, so thank you.
Keep going.
So we also have the Transportation and Land Use Connection Program, the TLC program funding. Mayor Wynn we're doing an active transportation program or plan out in Tooele City right now using this funding. But if you have land use connection ideas, that's what this program's for. And then the station area plan for those of you that are in areas where there's a fixed rail or a bus rapid transit stop. We have 2 others or 3 others that don't follow the same time frame, but we have we administer the CDBG or the Community Development Block Grant Program. We have the Community Impact Board money, and then the EDA is always trying to figure out, or using money from the EDA to try to figure out how to fund economic development activities. So that comes through our side. We are right now in the time frame of letters of intent. So if you know any cities and towns that would like to apply, it's a really quick form.
counties.
Or counties, thank you. It's a really quick form online, or just give us a call to see if it fits any of these programs. Applications, then full applications are due at end of December, and then projects are usually recommended around April.
One quick add-on. You don't have to know which program you're applying for.
Thanks, Ted. That's a
So
good point.
if you have a need and you think it might relate, then fill out the letter of intent, and it's an easy thing to fill out.
And we can also include that in our follow-up email, just in case somebody has any ideas. So that's all I have.
That's it?
I'm done.
Okay, any other business, other comments before we look for the last motion? Andrew?
Just appreciate everybody's participation and work, and we're happy to be supporting you.
Yeah. And I thank those that are online as well as those that are on in the committee. Look forward to that Zoom meeting only October 23rd. And again, take the time to go through those recommendations. I think it'll be well worth your time to do so, and your community. With that, I'd entertain a final motion to adjourn. We have a motion from Sarah. We have a second. Okay, non-debatable. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks again. Yeah. We did it in pretty good time.